Hi, welcome to Political Focus, everyone. This is Kenny Fogle on CKTV Channel 6 here, and we're glad you can join us because we're getting into several seasons here right now. One of them, obviously, the college football and professional football is taking off. It's football season, but it's also another season as well, and that season's coming up. It culminates on the 4th of November, and that's political season. So we hope you'll join us here over the next few weeks, and we'll be talking a little politics. That's something I always enjoy doing, so I hope you do too, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the political races and races that really mean and make a difference to you. So before we get started, I got one unique thing I think I can say over most people here in Nelson County. On my speed dial on my phone, I've got not only the chairman of the Democratic Party in Nelson County, but I've got the chairman of the Republican Party in Nelson County on my speed dial. And I feel equally good talking to both of them about politics, so hopefully we'll do the same for you here tonight. And I'm going to introduce ladies first tonight is Margie Bradford here. I've known Margie for several years as the chairman of the Democratic Party. And Margie, you have been chairman for more than 1 or 2 years, haven't you?
Oh, yes, since 1996.
1996, so you know pretty much.
Either 96 or 98, I forget which, I have to go back and look.
So the Democratic Party, like I said, just tell us a bit about yourself and about what's went on in all those years you've been as chairman.
Well, I've been an elected official for 34 years as an elected school board member, but I've also been active in the Democratic Party, working for Democratic candidates and for Democratic ideals, and doing all the things that a political chairman does in trying to get people out to vote, trying to encourage people to take part in the political process. It really pains me for people to know that people don't vote, because I think they don't realize what has been sacrificed to obtain that vote.
Well, obviously you think politics is important, or you wouldn't be doing it. And I guess that is the frustrating part, is you feel like everybody ought to feel like it's as important as you do.
Well, yes, because it is, because everything that happens or doesn't happen affects them. It affects them and it affects their children, it affects their future. So in not voting and not taking part in the political process, you are abdicating your responsibility and letting someone else make the choices for you.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, Robert, we'll switch over. I know you haven't been doing this for 19 years or anything, but you have been chairman for the last couple of years here in Nelson County. And tell us a little bit about you and what's your philosophy on the Republican Party here in Nelson County.
I was elected in 2012 at our county convention. That gives me 2 years experience, which has been very fun and very event-filled. Get to meet a lot of good people. And I would only underline what she's saying. You know, we do not want to abdicate our responsibility. We want people to go out to vote. We want people to make informed decisions, and that's, part of that falls on me. Mm-hmm. Part of that falls on her to try to get out and tell people, what our message is. And I think that in Nelson County in particular, I think that we're growing. Our numbers are growing, and I think that it's just real important that people be involved, that politics, a lot of people can see politics as a necessary evil, but it does beat using guns and knives. So.
Well, I know I heard one time that the role of the chairman of a party is to elect, in your case, elect Republicans, in her case, elect Democrats, but I think it's a little more than that. It's also, as you said, generate a little enthusiasm and provide the information, because as Margie mentioned, a lot of people may not be paying attention. Maybe that's the job of the head of the parties or the parties themselves, to make people pay attention, or to help them, encourage them to pay attention.
Right.
Generate the excitement, I guess.
It's very, it's very important. I know that it's probably true in your case. I serve 2 roles. One row is to elect Republicans, support our candidates. The other row is to push issues that are important to us into the forefront of our Republican plank, and then therefore take it to the people through our candidates. Advocacy, I feel, is a big part of what we do.
Well, Margie, I know you've been a Democrat for much longer than me, just chairman. Is there a reason you become a Democrat years ago, or are you just like myself? I was born into the Democratic Party. My dad was a Democrat. My granddad was a Democrat, and for a long time I didn't question it. But as I get older, I am questioning now, and still a Democrat, but still at the same time, maybe not as blind in a way as I used to be. So what's your opinion on that?
Well, I was born into a Democratic family. My parents were fervent Democrats, and the first time I saw my mother cry was when Roosevelt passed away. That's the first time I saw her cry, because he was considered a hero to the country. I mean, he literally saved us, or saved the ordinary man and woman in the street. Lost my train of thought there. I got to thinking about that. I may have been born into a Democratic family and born Democratic, so to speak, but I am a Democrat by conviction. And I knew you were going to ask me that question.
You've been reading my notes. I haven't looked at them myself.
So I made a list.
All right.
My reasons to be a Democrat.
We could be here a while.
No, it's fairly concise, but I think it's pretty encompassing. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the 8-hour workday, minimum wage law, the federal home loan program, the women's suffrage movement, which culminated in the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, the GI Bill of Rights, Workmen's Compensation Act, the school lunch program, NATO, the Marshall Plan, which helped rebuild Europe, the Peace Corps, Guaranteed Student Loan Program, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the Rural Electrification Act, the Clean Air Act, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Head Start Program, and the Affordable Care Act.
Okay.
And if I didn't have any other reason other than those, the other reason that I would choose is that a Republican appointed Supreme Court has made two very controversial decisions, split decisions, which has allowed the influx, well, influx is not the word, tsunami of federal dollars from billionaires who have no accounting. I mean, they are flooding into states with local races, with state races, as well as federal races. And if nothing else, that would convince me to vote Democratic.
Okay. Well, Robert, we'll switch over. I know you've been a Republican most of your life, and I know you've given a lot of thought, because you and I have talked many, many times and agreed on some issues, disagreed on some issues, but I know you're a convicted, I don't know if convicted's the right word.
Convicted.
Convinced.
No, I'm not convicted.
You're not convinced, not indicted, right? But you're a very convinced Republican, and you have your reasons why you're a Republican.
I do. I feel like the Republican Party, and you read a list that Democrats were involved in, and, there's no disputing that, Democrats were involved in several of those issues, and I think a lot of them came from, bipartisan support, unlike recent health care issue, which had absolutely no bipartisan support. But I feel that we just, we spend too much money, and I think we need to get back to some constitutional standard. We need to put control back into the hands of the people at the state and the local levels to take care of our own communities. And I feel like by not doing that, our budget's going out of control, and our grandchildren are going to have to pay for it.
Well, like I said, there's a merits on both sides of that. And like I said, when you mentioned money being in the system, I think in a way money's being spent at a rapid pace, but it's also coming in at a rapid pace. When you're talking taxation, but you're also talking a lot of special interest groups that are putting money seems to be the driving factor. Whether it's me and you spending money or somebody else spending money, or spending our money, I don't know.
Yeah, and I agree a great deal, as you know, about big money getting involved in campaigns. And you mentioned the Supreme Court. I'm just going to guess that you probably liked their decision on Obamacare, and it's the same Supreme Court that went the other way with the corporate finance. So when you get into courts, you really never know what they're going to do, and courts are fickle. So yes, you have to be in power and make policy to change the courts, but then again, we need to let the courts be 1/3 of the federal government and not try to.
Well, I'm not a big courts fan one way or the other, but who does make the rules? And we'll go down these real quickly. We got some elections coming up, and obviously everybody's got their opinion one way or the other about Mitch McConnell, been around for a long time, and now they've got a newcomer on the scene, Allison Lundergan Grimes. In some ways, very, very different individuals, and in some ways, philosophy is very different. One's been there 30 years, one's just coming up very young. And Robert, I'll give you the first at this. What do you see any impact in the Senate? Do you see what role do you see as the Senate? What's a Republican-led Senate look like to you? Is it something we need, or something that what's a Republican-led Senate look like? I guess is my question.
Well, I think a Republican-led Senate takes bills that originate from the House, and they'll bring them up for debate, and they'll bring them up for vote. Bipartisan bills like audit the Fed have just been floating around, and Harry Reid won't bring them up. He stifles legislation that comes in because he doesn't want members of the Senate to vote on these things. I'm sure you guys are going to have examples of it going the other way, where the Senate might, bring something up, and the House, might stifle it that way. So I think we need to get back to the 60 majority vote on a lot of these things that are in the Senate. Mm-hmm. We need to make the Senate a place where you go and you debate the issues, and you have a consensus, and you have 60 votes, and then you move on and you vote on the bill. We don't need nuclear options, and I think that was a mistake, and I would see a Republican Senate moving forward with a very key issue for me, which is audit the Federal Reserve, bring us back. Let us look at a gold standard, and we won't even have to talk about minimum wage.
Okay. Well, Margie, what do you see? You've got a Democratic Senate right now, and there's a possibility there'll be a Republican Senate in November. Do you see a danger in that, or what do you see?
Well, yes, I positively do see a danger in that, because Senator Mitch McConnell has already stated, and has stated frequently and publicly, that he would repeal the Affordable Care Act, remove it root and branch.
And in Kentucky, that's not necessarily a popular issue.
No, well, it may not be, but 500,000 Kentuckians are now insured that were not insured last year. What will happen if the Republican Senate happens and those people are told, no, you no longer have insurance because this bill has been repealed, and if you repeal the bill, you take away all parts of it. I mean, I personally know people who are seriously ill, and to the point of almost death, and because they didn't have insurance. And the bill came into effect, they were able to sign up to have an operation which saved their lives. Now, that's no small thing. So at least on just that one personal level, for Kentuckians who are suffering, who need health insurance, who need to be able to go to a doctor, need to have preventive care. Preventive care saves money in the long run. For everybody. So that's, if I had no other reason, that would be one reason I would want to have a Senate, a Democratic Senate.
Okay, well.
Healthcare is one of those things that we're just going to have to sit at the table and be real honest about. Mm-hmm. It was passed. Somebody in D.C. said we need to pass it so we can see what's in it. It was passed without one Republican vote. There was a lot of backroom deals made to get it passed, and the only, I can tell you two stories. One's mine. My insurance doubled, and my deductible went from $1,100 to $2,000 a year. A girl I work with actually was happy with her insurance, and she can't get it through our company now, and she had to go through the exchange, and it's the same amount of money. But she said, I was happy with what I had. So it's something that...
Well, I know there's a lot of talk, obviously, tort reform, to be able to buy insurance across state lines. There's a lot of issues, so I think we both agree that there's probably still work that needs to be done on it, but I think this is something that's been in the works for decades.
Oh, well, it has. Actually, the bill that passed was really modeled after a Republican plan. And Obama opted for that, hoping to draw in Republican supporters because it was modeled on a Republican. It was formulated by someone from the Heritage Council.
Well, before we get away from the McConnell-Grimes race, which like I said comes up probably the top of the line, I know we mentioned before we went on the air, there's a third party in this race this year, the Libertarian. But you know a little bit more about him than I do, so why don't you tell us about him?
I know his name. I know his name's David Patterson, and I don't think there's going to be a large groundswell of support for Mr. Patterson. I think the conservatives are going to stay with McConnell, and they're going to go to the polls, and they're going to vote with McConnell. You know, if the race comes down to 1 or 2%, then obviously, you know, he becomes, you know, in a lot of ways, the Libertarian Party is the new Green Party. So. It's out there. It's something to watch, but in the end, I don't think it's going to be a factor at all.
Okay, McConnell, Grimes, and Patterson in that race.